Hello, welcome. Happy Thursday. Today is our fun and free Happy Easter egg painting. And I'm hopping on a little bit early because I wanted to talk about three things that we have. Two of them coming up, one we've had available for a while. So just a couple announcements before we get started, and as you're able to join, say hi, let me know where you're watching from. And as always, I would appreciate your support in helping me get the word out on the video. So if you would spread the joy, sprinkle the love, that would be amazing to possibly inspire somebody else out there who's looking for something to paint. Say hi and thumbs up, hearts, whatever you want to put in the comments would be great to let me know that you guys are enjoying these videos. And so let me pull myself up here. Okay. And then let's see if I can see comments. I see Tracy and Susan is watching. Welcome. So like I said, I have three things that I want to visit with you before we get started painting today, and one of them is the bunny buckets. So if you didn't know, we have a few bunny buckets left for Easter. So they're an art themed kids activity Easter basket, and so I'm just going to put one under here so that you get a canvas, a large canvas, a blank small canvas. You get the paint and brushes. You also have this little wood garland that the kids can do, a game tablet, a few little toys for activities, and then eggs filled with treats, fruit snack, a fruit juice, and then the bucket itself. So we still have some of those available if you would like to get one of those. I think we have 13 boy baskets and 15 girl baskets. So, and if you already have a Easter basket, they'd make just great activity gifts for the holiday weekend. Okay, let's see if I can see. I'm not seeing anything on my laptop saying we're having trouble playing this video, so hopefully we're still a go. I'll check on my phone here. Looks like we've got a few people joining, so I'm going to keep going. If you wouldn't mind just letting me know that you can hear me and see me okay, that'd be great. I know that I'm not talking to just a blank, empty camera here. Okay, so bunny buckets, and let me put that link. You can get those on our website, redbyrddesigns.com. See if I put a link in here, if I can get my laptop going a little bit here. I can see and hear you. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you. Okay, good. We're going to just continue on, regardless of what my laptop says. Okay, so I put the link to our shop there for the bunny buckets. And then two other things. We have the Joy Box that's opened today. It's going to be open until the 29th, and then it will close down for the month of April, and then it won't reopen again until the end of April for the new month. And that is the mason jar sign here. And let me just change this view so I can get the whole thing in. So there we go. So you'll get the wood cut out for the mason jar, and then all the paint to complete this. You'll get the brushes and the cut out welcome word to glue on. And so this is a sign. It's got holes at the top. You also get jute to go with it to hang it and to wrap around here. And What else comes in the box? So you get everything you need to create this sign essentially, and then the Joy Box has a private group where we meet on the 15th or mid-month, kind of depends on the month, and I go live to show you how to do this. So this is open now until the 29th, then it will close at that point. So if you're interested in that, again, just go to my website, redbyrddesigns.com. Joybox is along the top, click on that, and it has all the information there for you. And it's free shipping. Did I say that? And it's $37. I'm trying to remember all the things. So that's open now. Super cute, super pretty. And if you're nervous about painting, these flowers are so simple, and I will step you through it step by step. And I can guarantee you that you will be able to create this. Okay, last thing before we get started. We also have a paid paint party coming up. So I'm gonna go live in April to paint this large 18-inch round sign. Ugh. I'm always backwards in my camera, so it's a little, get some taking used to know which way to move. Anyways, this is our lemon door hanger sign. The event is on our Facebook page, but also in the shop you can purchase to just view the tutorial. So if you have all the supplies, if you have the paint and the means to get a wood round, and you just want to join us for a fun evening of painting, you'll get the tracer and the supply list. That's $7. And then if you want to get just the wood round, that's, I believe, $17.99. And then for the complete kit, the paint, the wood round, brushes, tracer, everything you need to complete this is $34.99. And so that's available on our website. So I would love for you to join us in creating this. And I'll be going live a couple times before the event starts, just to kind of give you some different options. If you can't get a wood round, or some different ways that you can still create this with maybe some supplies that you have at home. So there's that. Those are my 3 announcements before we get started painting today. So let me know if you have any questions. Okay. All right, so we are getting down to business of the Easter egg painting. So I'm going to switch us over to the overhead camera so that we can paint this fun Easter egg piece of art. So if you would like to paint along, or you would like the tracer or supply list, those are available. Let me just drop that link in the comment real quick here as well. On our website, I do have the tracers for this and the supply lists. Let me find where I'm at on my laptop here. And all you have to do is find the painting that you would like to join or paint. You'll see a long list of paintings available on this page. Find the one that you want, click download, put your email in, and it will email you a zip file. And the zip file has 3 PDFs, the supply list, and a tracer for the top and bottom page of each of our paintings that we do. So there's that. Okay. So I've given you that. Let's see, what else do we need to talk about? I think that's it. Okay, so I have what you would see as our top tracer and the bottom tracer. They're, I'm painting on 11 by 14 mixed media paper. You could do this on canvas, you could do it on a piece of wood, whatever you want to paint that on, or whatever you have on hand. Even if you're just practicing and you don't have a mixed media pad, you could paint this on just a piece of cardboard, and that would work too, just to get some painting in. So you print these out, and then what you're going to do is align them and tape them down. So they're going to kind of stack on top of each other, and then center your elements on your surface and then tape it down. Once you've got it taped down, then you're going to take a piece of carbon paper or graphite paper. And graphite paper has two sides. It's got a dull side and a shiny side. So we're gonna slide this under here, and you just want to make sure that that shiny side is down. Put this under here. I think I can get most of it there. And then just take a pencil and lightly trace around all of the elements. I am going to hold off on transferring the Happy Easter until after I get my background on, because once I start putting that blue background in, you can see here, I'm going to lose that anyways, so you can hold off on that part. We'll put our background in, and then we'll come back in and transfer this on and paint that when that time comes. If you don't have graphite paper, another option would be to take your tracer here, flip it over, and you can see the lines coming through on the back. Take your pencil, hold it at an angle or semi-flat to the piece of paper, and just color in around the elements. You don't have to do the entire thing, but just taking your pencil and quickly coming over this is essentially creating graphite transfer paper on the back of your tracer here. And it doesn't need to be too dark, and that will give you a nice transfer too. So then you'll flip it over, center it on your surface, and then come in and press or trace over your elements. Okay, so I've already transferred mine. So if we pull that aside, you can see I've got my eggs, and I started to put that lettering in and realized that I'm going to lose it anyways with the background, so we'll come in and redo that after the fact. Okay, so let's talk about the colors that I'm using. These are just suggestions. Use whatever colors that speak to you, whatever your favorite colors are. Maybe they're pinks and purples or yellows and purples, whatever they are, use those colors. These are just suggestions. So I've got just a white and a black. For the background, I'm using a light blue, DecoArt Americana Spa Blue. And then I've got a Key West from Apple Barrel for the egg on the pedestal here. Just a bright yellow in any brand. I'm also using a burnt umber and a territorial beige in Apple Barrel, and I'm going to use that to get that rustic wood base here, or tabletop. Kelly Green is what I'm using for the egg that's sitting on the table, and then Razzleberry by DecoArt Americana for the flowers. So those are the colors we're using today. And again, they're just suggestions. Use whatever you want. Okay, so let's talk about the brushes I'm going to use. I'm going to use a large flat for the background. I've got a couple different sized rounds. I'm going to need from large to medium to small, and then also a liner brush. Let's see if I can find mine. Oh, it's in the water. So I've got my liner brush, and then I've got a chip brush here. And excuse me, I'm going to use the chip brush to get this really great texture in the table. The chip brushes really, really work well for creating that wood grain or the texture that you see in like barnwood, because the bristles are really stiff. They're, you know, spread out, and they allow us to drag that paint across and get that really cool texture. So I'm using a chip brush for that. And then I've just got a wooden dowel here you can that I'm going to use for the polka dots. You could use the back of a brush, if you had a little sponge dauber, really anything. Here you can also use the end of a pencil, so if the eraser hasn't been used, the eraser tip makes really great polka dots as well. Let me just check on you. Let's see, who do we got? We've got Nancy, Judy, Vicky, Patty's here, Kelly, and then Facebook is kind of repeating everybody. I think it's having a hard time catching up, maybe? Okay, so those are the tools that I'm going to use to paint today. Oh, and then I've also got a paint pen. I'm going to use the Posca brand, but really any paint pen you have, or even a Sharpie will work here. Okay, so let's get started. Let's start with our background. We're going to use a white and a blue for this. So I'm going to get quite a bit of white out. And then I'm using that light blue or spa blue. I'll get a little bit of that out as well. So if you're painting along today, let me know. And if you have any questions while we're painting, don't hesitate to drop them in the comments. Hopefully Facebook will show me those and I will help out as I can. If you're catching this on the replay, comment replay so that I can see when people are watching and able to catch it. Okay, so I'm going to load my brush up with a bunch of white, just using this large flat. The large flat brush works great for putting or filling in large areas like this. And makes really great big bold brush strokes, which I like in my background. So you can kind of see we've got this fun texture in the back with the white and the blue. So I'm going to load my brush up with a bunch of white, and then I just dipped a little bit of it in that blue. And then I'm going to come out to my surface and just start with some X's and crisscrosses and just trying to keep my brush strokes random. We'll load up with a bunch more of that white and a little bit of the blue, and then random brush strokes. This background is super easy and shouldn't take you very long. Okay, and then I've got this area where it's pretty blue right here, so I'm going to come in with just white now. I'm going to load that brush up and just drop some brush strokes of white in, and you can start to see that giving me that fun texture, almost like clouds in the background, or maybe some patterned wallpaper that's kind of blurry back there. So just play around with those colors, whether you want it more blue or more white, and just don't over blend. Keep your brush strokes fast, random, and let those colors kind of come out in different areas. And you can start, when I'm working around the egg or the pedestal here, I'm not concerned about being super precise around those elements, because the second coat or the next coat is going to clean up my background. So we can kind of be messy at this stage here. got some fun areas of light and a little bit darker blue. Okay. And so let's go drop just some little brush strokes of white back there a little bit here. Lighten up some areas. And so when I'm dropping that paint in, I'm really not doing a big brush stroke. It's just a quick little swipe of that color. And sometimes I just dab like a stamp or a sponge where I'm just kind of using that shape of the brush to give me that color drop there. There we go, I think that's good. I got this kind of line going here. I'm going to try and blend some of that out so it's not such a harsh line there. There we go. And that's our background. Quick and easy. Alright, so let's work on our table next. Our table is a combination of my browns and white and black. So I'm going to get a little bit of black out. We don't need a lot. Black goes a long way. We're going to get that burnt umber out. And then some of this territorial beige. So again, I'm going to use my large flat for this, and I'm going to start with loading my brush up with that white. So my first coat down on my table is going to be a gray color, and so to create that gray, I'm going to load up with white, and I'm going to dip that just a small smidge into the black. And then I'm going to come out, and if you notice, all of my brush strokes are running horizontal, so it's almost as if my wood piece is running this way, right? Because we've got this great texture that kind of gives us that look of the groove, or the grooves in the wood. So I'm going to go back and forth with my brush stroke and just blend that color right on. And so it's pretty light still. Let's get just a little more black. Kind of go easy on the black though, because it gets dark super fast. So we're just going to keep layering a little more black until it's a good gray, medium gray. And again, I'm not going to be too careful around my eggs, because I'm going to come in with that color on the egg and it will clean all of that up. Okay, so we've got our first coat down, and now we're going to switch over to our chip brush here. So I'm just dropping a little bit of black back there around where that table is behind this egg here. Okay. Alright, so let's go grab that chip brush and add some texture. I'm going to start by grabbing just a little bit of that brown, and when I say a little bit, we're really just touching the very tips of that brush into that paint. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to offload that, essentially taking the paint off so I have a dry brush. I could touch it to my hand and I'm barely going to get any paint on there. If you get too much paint, you can just take a rag and kind of just wipe it away there. And then we're going to just drag that paint out, and we're creating what's called a dry brush technique, and that's going to give us the great lines, the drugged lines across here that gives us that texture of wood. And make sure to use a light pressure, just a light hand as you're taking that brush across. You don't need to go too heavy. Put a little bit back there and then some back here. So I've got that burnt umber. Now let's jump over to the territorial beige. Dip it just very lightly in your area here, and then come and bounce that brush off to the side, offloading that color. And let's drag that lighter brown through there. Okay. So now let's go grab some black. Again, very small dip in that black. Bounce it off on a clean area or another spot on your plate or whatever you've got your paint on, or a rag, paper towel, whatever you have, and then let's drag that black through there. And I need just a little bit more. We can start to see that wood grain start to get built up with every layer that we put down. Let's go grab some white now. Just to dip in that white. I got a little much there. We'll offload it and do the same thing with that white. And the white kind of turns a little bit gray just because of all the color on our chip brush, but that's okay. I like the way it looks. If you want to have that more bright white streak coming through your table, you could definitely wash your brush and kind of start over with your color there. I'm going to grab just a little bit more black and darken it up just a little bit. And I'm kind of concentrating on putting some of this black here under the egg where we're going to have a shadow. We're going to come back with more black, even more so after it dries a little bit for more of a shadow. But I might as well just add a little bit of that black right now in that area because I know I'm going to need it later. You can start to see that shadow start to build right here and kind of under our pedestal. And there we go, that is our tabletop. Chip brush really works well for that. And you can do the same thing. It's a little more difficult with just a regular brush. If you had, let's see, if you had something like even like this type of brush, that might work, but they're fairly soft, so it's hard to get that drag. And again, if you're going to use something like this, make sure that it is dry almost to the touch before you drag it across, but you could definitely use something like that too if you didn't have a chip brush. Kind of old crusty brushes work best for work like this. Okay. There is our tabletop, so I'm going to drop that in water and we'll come back and add some more shadow here after we get further in. Alright, so let's get our base colors out for our eggs. I've already got white out, so I've got the base color for my pedestal here, and then I'm going to use that Kelly green for the egg here, and then I've got the Key West for the egg on the pedestal. Alright, so let's switch to a large round and we'll get that base coat on each of our eggs. I'm going to start with that Key West color here. And we'll just start by filling in this shape up here. Make sure that you're putting enough paint on your brush. Really load that load your brush up. You don't want it dripping off, but you also want to be able to easily push that paint around. You don't want to have to struggle with trying to fill in your area, because then you'll just get frustrated and it's not fun to paint like that. But you should be able to easily push that paint for quite a distance before you have to refill. Okay, there's our first coat for that one. And I'm just going to get that chip brush out of my water real quick here. A quick little wash. We'll go to that Kelly green. So has anyone given painting eggs a try? These eggs remind me of those, are they called Fabergé eggs? Is that right? Where it's the actual, well, Fabergé eggs are they a ceramic egg or are they the actual real egg that's emptied and painted? I can never remember. But the amount of detail on some of those eggs is pretty amazing. And painting on a surface that isn't flat is not easy. Okay, so we've got the first coat on both of those. Let's go put our coat on our pedestal and get that cleaned up. So for the pedestal, I'm going to start by putting in a gray color. And then I'm going to come in for the second layer and lighten it up. So if you can see here, there's gray underneath where the pedestal meets this little tray here. There's gray around the edges, and there's gray back here. And so what I've done is I've started with that gray color, and then we're going to come in and add that white around that. And that's really going to help us create that look of that it's 3D, that it's round, to have those shadows there. So I'm going to grab some of this white off to the side here and just push it off to the side on my plate, my palette. I'm going to dip a small amount in the black, and I'm going to mix up some gray here. I don't need it too dark, so I'm going to get a little bit more white, and there we go. So I'm going to fill the entire thing in with this gray. This will also help cover up the extra paint that I was doing with that messy tabletop and our background there. It's going to give us that great base coat to cover up all that color. White is pretty see-through, and it would take quite a few coats to cover that up. So I don't know where you're watching from or how you got, if you're watching from my main page, or did you pop in to the event and start the live there. I noticed when I created the live today and I was setting it up, Facebook gave me the option to go live directly on my page, and it was going to also broadcast it in the event, which I thought was cool, because previously you couldn't do that. You either went live in the event, and sometimes then it just got lost because the discussions in events are kind of hard to get to, or you went live on the page, your main page, like I'm doing, and you tried to direct people one way or the other, right? But today I was pleasantly surprised to see the option there to broadcast in both places, so that was cool. So hopefully, I guess, my hope is that that new feature helps people find these events a little bit easier, or these lives. Okay, so we've got our base coat there. You can see how well that covered up, just creating that gray base to cover up kind of that messy paint job that I had there. I feel like my plate here, my base got a little bit wonky. I'm going to try and extend it out. It's kind of going under the egg a little bit more there. Okay. So the egg up here really doesn't need a second coat. That blue covered the other blue fairly well, so we're good there. My green does need a second coat, and it's fairly dry, so I think we're gonna put that second coat on now. I think. It's still a little bit tacky. I'm gonna hold off on that. Let's go add our flowers to our egg up here, and then we'll come back and finish this one up. So I'm using the raspberry for my pink, which is a little bit darker than the pink I have on my palette. I was painting something else earlier today. And then I'm also using the yellow. And I'm going to switch to a small round for this process. So these flowers really are just little blobs or little circle type shapes. And what we're going to do is, let's see if I can bring this in here. We're going to create the blob somewhat of a circle, right? And then we're going to come in with some white and do little threes. So what I'm doing is creating just a little zigzag 3 or a backwards E in the flower around the center. So for the pink flowers, I'm using white to create those abstract petals, and then I'm using white for the yellow flowers, and then the opposite for the centers of each of those. And so for the center, I'm just dropping that color in the center, and that's it. Okay, so let's put those flowers in. We're going to start with that pink. Again, I'm using a small round for this. And I'm going to start by putting a flower in the center towards the bottom here. And again, just a messy circle. Okay. And then I'm going to put 2 flowers opposite, a little bit higher. So almost a step up, and then in the kind of diagonal of where that first one was. Diagonal. Just blobs of paint. Then let's go one up here, and we'll put one there. And then I've got just a couple smaller ones kind of off to the side up here. So they got just a little bit smaller as we're going up the egg. Okay. So we're going to let those dry for just a second. And let's go wash our brush and grab some yellow. We're going to fill in the spots that were left behind, so we're going to put a yellow right down here. A yellow on the other side of that first one. And then we've got just two up along the top here. And I've spaced them out just a little bit different this time. So I think we can fit a flower, we'll leave it as is. We might be able to fit another flower maybe off to the side here or something. But we will wait and see how our leaves and everything go. All right. Do a quick little wash, and now we're going to come back to those. Oh, I should have dropped my centers in with my yellow. So let's go back to that yellow, and what I'm going to do is kind of think about where I want my center, and I'm going to just drop that paint in, so just a little dab. That's it. Now we can give our brush a quick wash, and we're going to go into that white to create those petals. The first thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to pick up and load my brush up with that pink. And the reason I do that is to help create this blended brush stroke so it's not too stark white. We kind of get this mix of our brush strokes are a little bit white with just a hint of pink in them. So I start by loading my brush up with that pink, then I'm going to dip it in the white, picking up that pink and white on my brush. And then I'm going to start in the center and just do little zigzag brush strokes. Maybe they look like a 3 or a backwards E. And I'm going to work my way around in small little brush strokes around that center. The first couple might just be a C shape or a parenthesis type shape, and then as we get further out we can create that 3 shape or E shape. Okay. So just little zigzags, and you might only get 1 or 2 brush strokes in. Very abstract type flowers. Just use a light hand to get a light pressure to get a thin line in there, or a thin little brush stroke. And then if you've gotten too much white, maybe you added a little more white. I'm just going to go back to, or added too much and the brush stroke got a little bit wide in some areas. You can go back and grab that pink and just pull some pink through that white area. Kind of clean it up if you need to. Okay, so let me show you how messy my originals are. So close up you can see some of those brush strokes are just a C shape or a half circle. Some of them did turn out to be like a 3 or a backwards E, but very messy, very abstract. Okay, so let's go grab, oh, I washed my brush too soon. I'm going to go back and grab that pink to drop in the center of my yellow. There we go. Now we'll do a quick wash, and we're gonna grab the yellow, load your brush up with the yellow, and then grab some. So we've got both colors, and again we're just going to do a quick little swipe around the center and then get that little wiggle in your brush stroke as you go out. And the smaller the flower, the harder it is to get a 3 type shape. And if you can't get that shape in there, just do a half circle or a parentheses and just build those parentheses around the center as you work out. And that's fine too. I'm just going to add a little more white here. And there we go. Now we're going to add our leaves up here, and these really are going to help fill in a lot of this void space, empty space. And so what I've done is kind of just played around with putting different leaves on multiple sides of my flowers. Some have 3, some have 4. Just kind of play around with filling in that space there. The other thing that I want to point out to you, with this smaller brush, what we can do to create leaves, instead of creating you know, a couple brush stroke leaves, we're going to just use that brush to create one leaf. So we're just going to do a press, and we've got this great little oval shaped leaf without having to try and get in there really small and do multiple brush strokes and then fill it in. That will work, but a quick and easy way is just to take your brush and do a quick little dab. And I gotta make sure I'm right on the top there. And those make great little leaves. Okay, so let's go in and let's move this here and start filling in this area. So I'm gonna start at the bottom here. Just do a little press. So what I'm thinking when I'm doing that, and what I'm also doing, I should say, not thinking, what I'm doing is the tip of my brush is the outer tip of the leaf. So I want that pointing away from the flower, so the larger part of the leaf then comes back into the flower here. In some areas you can have 2. Maybe just a single, so I'm going to turn my brush just a little bit like that. So just keep the tip of your brush pointed away from your flower and just gently press, changing the direction of your brush will give you different directions for your leaves as well. We can start to see that fill in nicely here. Then we'll also come in with some white polka dots and just get the rest of this area filled in. Okay. Got some here that I just want to connect up there. There we go. Okay. So So that is our flower part of this top egg. We'll come back in with some white polka dots here in just a little bit, but let's let our flowers dry so we don't mess those up. And let's grab that large flat and put our second coat on the bottom egg here. So if you're watching, do you guys have special eggs that you guys put out for the holidays? Special painted eggs? Maybe some antiques or some eggs that have been handed down? Alright, so that egg is done. We will come in with polka dots here in just a little bit, but let's get this over here. Let's go finish up our pedestal here. I'm going to get just a little bit of some fresh white out, since all of my white has been messed with different colors. You don't need a lot here, so what we're going to do is come in, and the top part here, there's this little lip that I want to make white, so I'm just going to do that little area on that pedestal. That's the only part that I want white. There's this little top piece of that pedestal that wraps around the back of the egg. I want to keep that gray because that is kind of in the shadow of the egg. I'm going to keep that gray. Okay, and then down here, under the tray or this little plate here, we want that to be gray in this area because it is in the shadow. So I'm going to start about where that pedestal kind of curves out and fill this in with white. So we still got that shadow there. And then also, I didn't go all the way out to the edge. I left some of that gray along the edge of that curved area, so it makes it look like it's rounding about or going around. Okay, and then we're also going to bring that white down to the base. And that base kind of flays out or kind of creates that, what would you call it? The only thing in my brain right now that I can think of is skirt, but that's not it. It just looks like a skirt to me. Okay, so then also we want to add a little bit of white to the front part of that base. The back we're going to leave gray for the shadow. So I'm just kind of adding a little bit of white about midway around that base part and then all along the front here. And then that's it for the base. We will add some black lines to outline it a little bit here in just a little bit, but that is it for the color. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is define my tabletop. I'm going to use black and drag some black along the back. You can see here that it just kind of fades off into nothing, and the original has this a little bit of black back there, and it helps define that so it's not just lost. Kind of give it a hard edge So I'm going to use my small round for this and just kind of drag a little bit of some black line back there. And that's it for that. Then let's work on this shadow down here. We want to create just a little bit more of a shadow. So I'm going to grab my medium round for this and grab my black. And I'm going to grab just a little bit of that burnt umber as well, just to soften it up so it's not so dark. And I've got just this little area up here where I've created this mix of some burnt umber and black. And what I'm doing here is also just trying to offload some of that paint. I don't want too much. This is in one area where I like to have less paint on my brush so that I can drag it across my surface and just a small amount of paint deposits, so it's not just a hard black line. We just want to create that dragged shadow here where we still see some of that color underneath. So what I'm going to do is start kind of in this corner here, lightly just take my brush back and forth, the very light pressure, dragging that black color in this area here. And I'm going to start pulling that down, pulling away from my egg and my pedestal here. A little more paint. You start to see it darken up, but it's not just a solid black brush stroke. Just lightly touching that surface, depositing just a small amount of that paint in there. Okay, and then I'm going to grab a little bit of white, soften it up just a little bit. Get a dark gray and drag that in there as well. Got a blend of both colors here. We just want to darken that up just a little bit. Okay, so now we're ready for our polka dots here, and then we'll do our polka dots up here. So for the polka dots along the top, I just used the back of a brush. I want smaller polka dots up there, so let's see if I got enough white out here. I think I do. I'm going to use the back of the brush. I've loaded it up with just a little bit of that white paint, and I'm going to start just tapping that back of the brush on my surface, and it creates these really great even polka dots. The bigger the brush that you use, the bigger the handle, which will then in turn give you bigger polka dots. So keep that in mind as well. So for this area where the flowers are, I'm just thinking about putting polka dots where there's some empty space. It's kind of filling in some different areas there. And then I'm going to start to add some polka dots along the top here. And just work my way up, creating a little pattern of polka dots. So I'm working my way over to the other side here. And I need more white paint. And then I'll do another row of polka dots. And you can take your polka dots as far up the egg as you want. I went up about 3/4 of the way, so I've just kind of got the very top of the egg is left blank. And there we go. Okay. I just got some of these little polka dots got a little tiny. So if you don't have enough paint on your brush, kind of get really tiny polka dots no matter the size of the brush you use. So I'm going to just come back in and fill those in. There we go. Try and make them all the same size. Okay, so then we're going to grab this dowel, and I have no idea what size it is. It's something, I think, from one of my son's toys or something that I grabbed. But we're going to do the same thing with the dowel. Again, if you don't have this, a bigger brush will give you a bigger handle, so you can use that for your polka dots. You could use a skewer, the end of a skewer. I have one of those here. You could use the end of a pencil, like the eraser part if you wanted to. So a lot of different ways that you can create your polka dots. So with the wood piece here, I want to make sure that I don't have too much paint on and kind of get globs here. So just a gentle press with this skewer or this dowel. And we'll just come out here and start placing some polka dots. I'm not too concerned about creating the perfect little pattern, but I also want to make sure that I don't have too big of spaces or too small of spaces either. It's kind of hard. So my idea here when I'm placing polka dots is to try and create kind of this pattern, so I go straight up and down as best that I can, and then for the next row over I fill in the space where the other two are, you know, so I create this little zigzag. So for this next one here, these two are here, so I'm going to try and go in between those two. It's kind of my thought process there. And your polka dots are going to be just a little bit different depending on what you're using to create those polka dots. So just have fun with it. If you hate it or your polka dots kind of get crazy, that's the great thing about paint. You can just go over and start over, paint it green, and try again. Alright, so all of our elements are painted, so now we're ready to do our lettering. So I'm going to bring my tracer back and I'm going to cut out the area that I want, because all of this is still pretty wet and I don't want to lay this big piece of paper on my eggs. So we'll cut out just that little square bit that we need. Place it there. I'm going to grab my transfer, and actually I'm going to cut even my transfer to fit that size. Just cut a little square out so that's not hanging out either. We'll lay that there. Okay, and then I'm going to take my pencil, move my plate here, and just go over my letters. So for the Easter part of this, I am just going down the center of my letters, because I will come back in with that marker and thicken them up. So I'm not going to spend the time to go around all of the thickened edges there. Just go down the center and then you can come back and thicken it up as you like. There we go. So I'm going to take my paint pen here and we'll fill in that Happy Easter. See if I can see any comments. Hi Karen. Kristen's watching. Thanks for watching. Okay. We'll prime that up, make sure it's got ink at the end here. And my Happy is just a single line font, so just one up over the area here. And sorry about that. I lost my train of thought. My pup distracted me. So a single line over the Happy part, and then for the Easter I'm going to start to think about where I want to thicken that up. So when you're doing hand lettering or calligraphy, you want to thicken it up on the downstroke. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take this and go over all my single lines and just get my shape in there, or my word, okay? And then when I'm coming back from my second pass, I'm thinking about anytime my brush comes down in that downward stroke. So for the E here, this little loop, I'm going up, so that's going to stay thin, and then when I come down is where I'm going to thicken that up. So I come up this little loop and I want to then thicken it up around this downstroke here, okay? And then I come around, I come up, so it's still single, and then as I'm going down that E on this side here, this little loop, I'm going to thicken that up because that's a downstroke. Okay, and then around that little loop, down that last little bit is thick, so we're going to add a couple extra lines to that to thicken it up, and then around the loop, and there we go. Okay, so for the A here, we're starting kind of in this little center little bit here that's coming up. So that's an upstroke, and then around that A is a downstroke, so I'm going to thicken it up there. And then we come back and add that tail, or that back piece is thick. It's a downstroke, so we're going to thicken that up. Okay, on the S, come up and then down. So a lot of part of that S is just a kind of a thicker line. For the T, we start at the top here, so this is a downstroke, so we're going to thicken that up. For the E, thin, and then around the back is thick. And then the R, we've got that thick little bit on the loop there. We're still coming down, so I'm thickening that little bit on the hook here, and we come down, thicken it up there. And then for this little flourish or loop-de-loop, kind of just thicken it up a little bit there. And that is our Easter. And then let's just give our T across a little bit of a thickness here. And you can go back and thicken it even more, insert in those downstroke areas. If you wanted it to really be bold, you could do that. So just play around with it, but just remember that it gets thick when it's a downstroke. In a natural calligraphy or handwritten brush stroke or pen stroke, when you come down, that's where it gets thick. Okay, so then the last thing that I want to do here is add some of these fun outline elements. And so for this one, because I had polka dots kind of in my patterns here, I created outlines that had little dots in those outlines. So I'm outlining my egg, and then I go so far, and then dot, dot, dot. I do a line, dot, dot, dot. And I think that just adds another level of pattern and fun, whimsical feel to this painting. So we're gonna do that next. So we're gonna just come around the egg, do a brush stroke or a pen stroke, and then we'll do 3 dots. You could do dashes if you want. You could do a little X, kind of make it look like a stitch mark, I guess. Maybe you just want to do 2 dots or just 1 dot even. A lot of different ways that you can add some fun little elements to your outlining. Okay, and then so for the pedestal here, I've got these little loops here that's indicating that it's going around back. And then I do a dot dot, and I come across for little ways, a couple more dots, and then connect it. And then I'm going to bring that line down from my little loops here to give my pedestal thickness, and then I'm going to outline the bottom part of that top piece of the pedestal. Okay, and then I'm going to just take a solid line all along the pedestal column bit there, and then I will come back and add those dots to the base. Then I'm going to do the same with this egg. A line, 3 dots. A line, 3 dots. So we are past the stage in our house for dyeing Easter eggs, which is a little bit of a sad transition, but also kind of nice not to have to do that. So this is kind of fun for me to kind of play with decorating Easter eggs, since we don't do it anymore. All of my kids are too old for that now. Okay, one last thing that I do want to do before I finish this up is add some white highlights to the top of my egg here, just to give it that look that we've got some light in the painting and it's kind of glinting off. So I'm just going to drag a white line along the top, and then also along the top part or the upper part of this egg here, which is, because it's turned on its side, if the sun or the light was coming straight down, it would hit the top of this part here. Just do a quick brush stroke around that. And there we go. Bring that around up here. That is our Happy Easter egg painting. And I will remove my tape and show you. So I hope you enjoyed this painting. I hope that you're able to find time and paint along. Give it a try. Again, if you want the tracer and supply list, the link is in the description. It takes you to my website. You find the Easter egg painting on the page. Click on the download. It will ask you for your email so that we can email that to you, and it emails you a zip file. The zip file is going to have 3 PDFs, the supply list, and then the tracer for the top and the bottom. And it is for an 11 by 14 painting, but if you wanted to use it for something smaller, a smaller mixed media pad, or even get bigger, you could use the scale function in your PDF viewer, whether it's Adobe Reader or whatever it is, and kind of scale it up or down however you want to use it. But I'll bring it up here so you can see when I tape mine down, I get that nice clean white edge, but you don't need to do that if you don't want to. I like the way that it gives me kind of a framed painting, and then it also helps hold my paper down for me. So there are those flowers. Again, just messy little blobs with a couple brush strokes inside. The leaves are just dabs of your brush. And then the polka dots are using the back of brushes, and there we go. So if you do paint along and or paint at another time, feel free to share to the page. You can post it right on our Redbyrd Facebook page. If you're nervous about sharing, I would love to see it in a private message, so that I can encourage you, because the more we share and the more we get encouraged, the more we want to create art, and that is kind of the beauty of it. It just is this great snowball effect, and art is so healing and therapeutic. So I encourage you to paint and then share and get that ball rolling, so you continue to paint and continue to want to share, and you know, when we share, then we inspire others as well. So I'd love to see your art. Everyone's going to be different, which is the great part about it. So share. And like I said, if you want to share just with me, that would be fine too. I will not share your pictures unless I have permission to. So, all right, ladies. I will let you go. I hope you have a great day. Hope you enjoyed this painting. Hope you find time to paint this weekend, this week, however you can fit it into your schedule. And I look forward to painting with you again, and we will talk to you later. Bye.